Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of Don't Die Dumb. I'm Pete Christensen.
And I'm Coffee Brown.
Now, I want to touch on the recent No Kings protest, which I consider a very good thing because it lets people know they're not alone. And it's a good thing because it shows that you have numbers, that people really are speaking out against this, and it gives you a chance to vent. However, it's a little more than a pep rally. We're speaking to the choir. We're preaching to the choir here. I don't think it's getting us more people to stand up to fascism. I think that since 30% of Fox News, the brainwasher in this, and Rupert Murdoch's the villain here, gets 30% of their money from local Fox affiliates, whether they're the news portion or the entertainment portion. That's where we should be rallying at. Your thoughts?
Rallying at the Fox News stations?
At your Fox affiliate in your town, and if you haven't got one, at your conservative radio station. There's over 600 conservative radio stations now pushing this garbage of fascism is better for you, under the guise of Make America Great Again.
So actually, I don't agree that Fox is a conservative radio station. Fox is a maggot radio station, and we're going to talk in a subsequent podcast. Maggots have nothing to do with conservatism, haven't for quite a while. Also, it's interesting that Fox reported this as the I Hate America rally. Well, how's that for some fair and balanced reporting? We can disagree with each other about all kinds of things, but America was formed to get away from King George. That was the core value that led to the Declaration of Independence. So a No Kings rally is about as American as it gets. And even if it weren't, if we called ourselves the Polka Dot Princess rally, or the Anti-Nazi rally, or the Dog Catchers rally, Fox should report it under its own name. When Fox gives it a name, which is not its actual name, they're editorializing and therefore cannot claim to be reporting fair and balanced news.
Yes.
Now, that's not new information. Nobody anywhere believes that Fox reports fair and balanced news, I don't think. Look at the stuff they hid from their own base. Recordings of themselves laughing at their own base during the Diebold hearings about how they could basically tell them anything and the base would believe it.
But the base does believe it. I was talking with a woman recently, and she asked me, are those machines at the voting booths, are those Dominion? I said, yeah. She goes, well, you know they're crooked. I said, no, Fox News had to pay just under $1 billion because they lied. These are not crooked. And she said, that's a lot of malarkey, quote unquote. They still don't believe it, even though Fox News told them they were lying.
I mean, Fox has told them so many things that they don't need outside sources to realize are false, such as the idea that the Haitians were eating pets. One animal was reported by one woman who thought it might have been her Haitian neighbors, and the animal turned up healthy, and she apologized on the news. And still, after all that occurred, Fox News kept reporting that Haitians were stealing and eating pets. They have been telling people forever that climate change is a hoax. And yet farmers are complaining they can't grow crops anymore. Everybody is complaining that every summer is getting hotter. In Los Alamos, famously, there weren't any air conditioners in the apartments up there because they never needed them. And now they're having to retrofit them all with air conditioners. The Colorado River is dry where it used to be a raging torrent going into Mexico. You don't need to believe or disbelieve in Fox News to realize that if somebody says climate change is a hoax, they don't know what they're talking about. At best, Fox News would be incompetent.
186 scientists from 198 countries did independent surveys and scientific research for 30 years, and they all came up with the same conclusion. It's not a hoax, it's real. Yet people still deny it. And that's the biggest threat to human life that I know of.
Climate change was first predicted in Abraham Lincoln's time.
How's that?
The scientists of that time recognized that carbon dioxide was a greenhouse gas and that industrialization was increasing the output of it. They said if this goes far enough, it's going to warm the climate. In the 1970s, there was the famous hockey stick graph. That was the inflection point, the point at which the rise in temperature visibly accelerated when you look at a graph of temperatures year by year. And all of the last 20 or so years have been record breakers for heat. So what planet could you live on where that doesn't constitute climate change? Venus. It's pretty hot there.
But we're off topic here, because what we're initially talking about is the fact that conservatives are not MAGAs.
Right. So that is actually a really important point. There are things I disagree with conservatives on and things I disagree with liberals on. I actually don't feel loyalty to one team or the other. In fairness, most of my positions would make me look like a liberal. So I'll acknowledge that, but I don't feel an obligation to hold a position because it's liberal. Conservatives value integrity and they value purity. To a true conservative, lying is a bad thing. But there is footage of Newt Gingrich over 20 years ago. You can see it on YouTube. Just look up Newt Gingrich says perception matters more than facts. He's arguing with a reporter about whether crime is rising. It had been falling for a long time. And the reporter says, well, look at this data. Crime is falling. No, it isn't. It's rising, he says. But look at the data. Where's that even from? It's from the FBI. Well, it doesn't matter whether crime is rising or falling. What matters is what people believe. And much more recently, Vice President Vance told a reporter, she said, is that thing you just said true? And he said, it's not my job to know if it's true. It's your job to figure out if it's true. So we have a party that has formally divorced truth because it's not working for them. Facts aren't lining up where they want them to go. Conservatives would never have signed on to that. But they think they're hostage to Republicans because they think the Democrats are worse. They are not. On every issue, Democrats are closer to classic conservatives than modern maggots are.
Now, I consider myself a moderate. If you're a Republican, you got a good idea, I'll go with it.
Yeah.
If you're a Democrat, I'll go with that too. Because I vote for what's good for my area and for the country, not what's good for the party. But I'm looked on as a flaming liberal, left-wing radical. That's insane.
Right. Well, you have to realize Nixon and Reagan are flaming liberals by modern standards.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Republicans like to brag about Abraham Lincoln as the first Republican. And one of the things Lincoln did was he voted against the war against Spain, the Spanish-American War, but he voted for the equipment and wages to support the troops. When John Kerry did that exact same thing at the beginning of the Iran debacle, he was worked over by the Republicans for being wishy-washy. No, he said, I want to protect the troops that are acting on our orders, but I don't want us to order them to go to an invasion that doesn't make sense.
Well, I would think that young people coming up, young Republicans, wouldn't buy into that. They'd be too smart to buy into this.
They're being radicalized to the far right. They are very formally racist and misogynist. And that's another thing I don't understand. So a classic conservative would favor traditional nuclear family structure, heterosexual mom and dad and their biological children, first marriage for the parents, and so on. And that's fine. And if that's a happy, stable household, I would totally endorse that. But why do they feel the need to force the model they prefer onto everybody in the world? Why do they feel the need to punish people who have a different model in mind? And the maggots, I mean, they're following a guy who divorced his first wife for a model and then divorced her for another model who at the time was in the country legally but working illegally as a model. Well, when he started dating her, she had a HB1 visa by the time they got married.
Can conservative Republicans divorce themselves from the MAGA?
Well, conservative Republicans, I would argue, have two choices, and all of them are going to be unpleasant. They can do what they've been doing, which is say, well, I'm a conservative, I have to vote Republican. in which case they're knowingly letting themselves be gaslighted. I mean, most true conservatives by now realize how far Republicans have jumped the shark, and they're not salvageable. They could start their own party, the Lincoln Party, and I will promise here now, publicly, if the Lincoln Party gets started, I will vote for it in every election for the rest of my life to help them get established as a viable third party. But if they do that, they're going to lose elections for a while, and they're afraid of that. Well, you know, the party is not as important as the country. That is something Republicans do not at all believe, but conservatives do. Conservatives believe the most important thing is the integrity of the country. Republicans believe the most important thing is power for their niche party. They don't need a majority to make that work. Hitler didn't have a majority. He had about the same large minority that Trump has, and he was operating in pretty similarly.
Okay, now educate me on this. I keep hearing and seeing different internet posts that we're reaching 3.5%, 7 million people. And power can't remain if it gets up near 4%. Have you heard that?
I don't know. I didn't follow that. I'm sorry.
And I think what they're saying is you've now got a certain percentage of the country that will start to gain more and more and more. There were 7 million people approximately at the No Kings protest. I think that number is very low. And 7 million, that doesn't mean much.
It is actually the largest political protest in history.
Yeah.
So that means quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's conservatives. Conservatives, I'm looking right at you. This is your chance to live up to your story that you've always told yourself, that you're brave and you have integrity and you'll make the hard choices and you'll put the country before yourselves. Well, God damn it, do it. Do it. This is your chance to save the country from becoming Nazi Germany. Why did we go to the trouble of stopping Hitler if we're going to elect our own Hitler? And you guys are being conscripted. Do you think that when Hitler finishes with other groups, he's not going to turn on whatever group you're a part of? Some group that you're a part of is going to be the out group. Maybe you're just a stamp collector, but if they fall out of favor, that's going to get you rounded up. More importantly, a party which is less than half the country that says the other larger than half the country is the enemy within is a party that will destroy us. Ben Franklin said, either we stand together or we fall apart. And that is as true now as it was then. It's a republic if you can keep it. Well, we cannot keep it if we're weaponized against each other. Conservatives know that, and Republicans are ignoring that problem. So if you believe in national defense, you do not want an internally divided country. And if you believe in winning an economic war, you don't want a country that suppresses full participation.
Right now, the American Farm Bureau is telling farmers, don't plant soybeans in the Midwest. Not because they can't sell it, that's beside the point, they can't. But more so because the climate is so wet in the spring, they'll rot before they can grow. That should be something Democrats are telling people. I feel the Democratic Party has terrible messaging. And when I see people like Hakeem Jeffries on television, and he goes off on these long-winded things about the budget, instead of just saying they're trying to save Medicaid and Medicare. It is so frustrating for me. The Democratic Party had a chance to buy 91 radio stations. They didn't do it. They passed on it. This is why they're losing. Because the young Native American men, the armed services recruits them really, really heavy. And the reason they do is because they're so impoverished that it's a way to get out of poverty, to get a job, to get money.
That's how they got African Americans into the military as well.
And they won't give them high positions because they don't trust them. It's well known that our covert operations, CIA, FBI, they won't give them high positions because they feel they're disenfranchised from the country and it's easy for them to betray us, which it's not. But once they go into the Army, they play Fox News 24/7. They all come out And a great majority of them vote for Trump and these other people that are actually working against their best interest because they've been indoctrinated.
It's kind of crazy. We're going to talk in the next segment about the Politico article, I Love Hitler, and it's pretty crazy. If you have skin that's darker than mine, you really do not want to be voting MAGA. It's pretty blunt.
Well, the MAGAsphere believes that he's going to turn on the Muslims and the Hispanics, but he'll leave them alone.
For a little while.
And Trump fell for the same ploy. He told Putin he had 2 weeks to get out of Ukraine. That was 25 weeks ago. And he talked to Zelensky, said, I'll give you long-range missiles. 3 days later, spent 2 hours on the phone with Putin and came back and said, well, I'm not going to give him to you. Putin is playing him like a cheap violin, and he keeps falling into it over and over again.
Yeah, Trump's a total fangirl for Putin. Well, and look at how he's admired, the leader of North Korea, the leader of China,
Orban,
Venezuela.
Yeah.
Venezuela, the same people he's attacking now. He's admired their strongman. So
he wants Venezuela's oil.
Actually,
that's why he's trying to start a war with them.
No group could betray America more than MAGA is doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And MAGA is the Republicans. Make no mistake, conservatives cannot take back the Republican Party. They've lost that party. You have to build your own party. Now, you could and should vote Democrat for a little while. I'm not asking you to become Democrats. I get that you hate things like men wearing dresses. But if you're weighing men wearing dresses against climate change, or you're worried about a black bus driver versus gas chambers, you're really worried about the wrong stuff. I mean, and neither the right nor the left, neither conservatives nor Democrats are fans of economic collapse, whereas maggots are pretty indifferent to it as long as they think it's going to give them power over people that they don't like. What they don't realize is they will become the people someone else doesn't like. Nobody ever wins in a totalitarian government. Look at history. Even Fox News, I don't think, could paint over that rust.
Here's the height of irony here. The MAGA base has now made it fashionable to be prejudiced.
Right.
So what happened is, I was told for years, yeah, the country's very prejudiced. And I didn't believe it because the people I hung out with weren't. And the few that were, we ostracized. We didn't want to be around these people that enjoyed hating people. But now that the Republican Party has made it fashionable to be prejudiced, they're coming out of the woodwork. Those 78 million that voted for Trump, a lot of them are racist. The great majority of them are. So now suddenly it's okay to be racist, but if you're gay or transsexual or whatever, you have to hide that in the closet. That's worse. If the person next to me is gay, I would want to know just so I know where they stand. They don't want that. They want them to be in the closet. But if you're a Nazi, that's okay. You can bring that. The irony here is unbelievable to me.
We've had to actually invent a new word for this generation, hate gospel. So we had the prosperity gospel, which is a pretty weird perversion of the Bible, in which if Jesus loves you, he'll make you rich. And if you're not rich, he must not love you. You better do something about it. Send money to me. Jesus loves me. Look how rich I am. If you send me more money, then Jesus might love you more and send you some money too, right? I mean, that is just, how do you read the Bible and fish that out of it? Well, in the same way, we now have the hate gospels. Whole churches devoted to who you should hate and preaching that empathy is a sin. Like, you do not need to be a Bible scholar to realize that if Jesus harped on the importance of empathy for the poor, the exact opposite of the prosperity and hate gospels that we're hearing now. That's how far we've come. And, conservatives have always been proud of the fact that the world looked up to us. They do not look up to us now. They fear us to a degree. They're getting bullied by us. But they see us as a laughingstock, and particularly see Trump as a laughingstock.
Well,
Actually, even Trump's base sees him as a laughingstock. When Newsom copies Trump's voice, they talk about how absurd it is. But it's Trump's voice.
The No Kings protest in Europe were also millions and millions. They're afraid that we'll go fascist, and then no one will be there to block Putin from going into Poland, Monrovia, the entire eastern half of the European nations.
Right. Hitler got stopped because we stepped in at the end.
There's nobody to save
Nobody's
us.
going to step in for us.
Yeah.
Russia and China will be ecstatic to become the only two world superpowers, and then they can fight with each other. But America will be too fragmented to be a superpower, another conservative value. They love that we're a superpower, and they love the idea of us being world leaders. But if you don't have respect and you don't have internal cohesion, those things go away.
Now, can we stop this without a revolution? No country is better off after a revolution, very rarely. Can we stop this? And let me say a further question, one way to stop it, and will it come to fruition? Will Republicans turn on the president and his cabinet if the Epstein files get released? I believe they'll get released redacted, and we'll never know.
No, Trump said during his first campaign, I could walk out in the middle of Main Street and shoot somebody on TV, and my base would never desert me. Mm-hmm. And he's right. His base is so uncritical, they will never desert him. But conservatives are not his base. They got entrained with the Republican Party, but the Republican Party has long since left conservative values behind. We have a president who left his first wife for a model, left her for another model, then bribed a porn star to have sex with him, then bribed her not to tell anyone, using campaign funds, convicted of 37 felonies. I mean, I could go on for a long time, but you've heard all this, and you go, la, 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 I've heard this before, I don't care about it. You know what makes cliches powerful? They're true.
Now, tell us, if you can, a little more about the I Love Hitler article. What is that all about?
All right. I was going to do this as a separate. So Politico, 2 days ago, just published an article, I Love Hitler, leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chat. Now, there's a little bit of a pro and con here. So a bunch of young Republicans, these are up-and-comers that are being groomed for political office and to be leaders in the Republican Party, in their private chat space, well, they openly advocated. I'm going to read you some of the quotes from the article. This is not my article. I don't have a copyright, so I don't want to overshoot. But everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. Oh, great. I love Hitler. You're giving nationals too much credit and expecting the Jew to be honest. It was rape. That's epic. And so on. I mean, there's a lot of this, a lot of this.
Why aren't we hearing more from the Jewish community about this?
Well, I'll circle back to that. So topics that were in this chat room and heavily represented with lots of endorsement: anti-Semitism, gas chambers, burning people, and explicitly pro-Nazi. Can we get them to adopt more Nazi symbols and more Nazi slogans? Racism, stereotypes, and slavery, using a lot of epithets I just am not comfortable repeating here, and bizarre, childish stereotypes. One of the things that characterizes current MAGA thinking is that they sound like 11-year-old schoolyard bullies.
Yeah.
That is clearly who they want to be. And you could make the case that for an 11-year-old, okay, they're going to do that. The idea is that they outgrow it. But these are grown people. In fact, these people in these young Republican chat rooms are in their late 20s and early 30s for the most part. Some are even older. Gay slurs, boom, they're dead, vote for the most right-wing person, meaning the person least representative of the main body of Americans. And wildly misogynist, of course, pro-rape. Now, there's a couple of mitigating things you might say. Well, they're young, they're coming along and they'll outgrow this. No, they're not. They're in their late 20s and early 30s. Their prefrontal cortex has finished maturing. This is actually who they are. Well, okay, but it's a few guys in a few rooms. No, it's actually people from Kansas, New York, Arizona, Vermont, Michigan. Michael Bartels is a member of the current administration. Jack Vance said, well, people are getting so excited about this. It's not a big deal. Look at them clutching their pearls. Folks, it is pearl clutching time. It is time now to clutch your pearls. This is as bad as it gets. We are right there on the precipice of what happened in Nazi Germany. And I want to remind you, I know I'm repeating myself, but the Nazis were never a majority in Germany. What they had was the public offices and the guns. Does that sound familiar to anybody? And then Trump, just a couple on September 8th, was giving a speech in which he was complaining that his crime statistics would look better if we didn't count a little fight between a husband and wife as a crime. Domestic violence is a crime. It is a crime, and it's a heinous thing to do. And conservatives would not condone domestic violence, but the MAGA right does actually endorse people like the Tates who explicitly say slapping a woman around to show her the rules is a reasonable thing to do.
It's appalling, but more than that, it's scary. And what's scary to me is the fact that more people aren't standing up to this. More people are falling in line. And a lot of people are afraid. I'd like to have a bumper sticker on my car, but I live in a heavy red area. It'll be vandalized. I can't afford it, you know.
So violence is an instrument of the right, the far right. It's not something conservatives would endorse. Conservatives do not endorse intra-national political violence. Neither do liberals. That's not to say that nobody on the left has ever committed a violent act, but the number is tiny compared to the right. When the left does it, like the guy who shot Charlie Kirk, well, that shows you that the whole left is full of violent terrorists. But the fact that there's way more than 10 times as much violence coming from the right, but these are all one-offs, and they're not one-offs, by the way. They're done by groups like the Proud Boys and so forth.
Well, the guy that shot Trump, the guy that shot Charlie Kirk, the guy that attacked Pelosi's husband, they're all conservatives.
Yeah, that's interesting.
They're all right-wing people. I will never believe that the young man that shot at Trump did this all on his own, that a security sheriff or whatever got up on the roof, saw him with a gun, and dropped down and didn't do anything. There's something I'm not a conspiracy guy, but there's something very suspicious here. As if they told a young man, you can die for the cause, you can be a martyr for the cause. I'll never know, we'll never know, but there's something very suspicious about that.
The point I'd like to be making is that regardless of how much violence comes from the right, none must be endorsed by the left.
No, of course
and
not.
None should be, and I don't think any is being endorsed by classical conservatives. I think that the political violence in America presently is almost entirely the right-wing populists, the maggots, the Trump cult, that used to be the Republican Party. I don't think conservatives or liberals, either one, are endorsing this, and I strongly advocate that we never do, because you just can't accomplish anything that way. And talking yourself into thinking that leads to just new dictators. Left-wing dictators, one thing the right is correct about, left-wing dictators are just as bad as right-wing dictators. I don't want a dictator. And by the way, if the left ever had this kind of sweeping, runaway, ignore the main part of America kind of attitude, I would be as adamant against them as I am now against, we call them the right wing, but really they're the bizarre wing. They have nothing to do with classical conservatism. Conservatives, you need to save us from this mess that you allowed yourselves to be gaslighted into. This is your chance to man up. And I don't want to hear a word about courage and integrity and man up from conservatives if they're going to continue to kiss the ring.
Well, understand this. Democrats keep saying, well, wait till the midterms. We'll get them in the midterms. No, you won't. And you won't because of this. In red states, they are purging hundreds of thousands of voters off the polls right now. You cannot wait for that. So what are we waiting for? Who's going to save us? Will there come a time when they go too far and the military base has a coup and takes over?
Only conservatives can save us. Without conservatives, the maggots cannot finish destroying America. But if conservatives do not wise up, then this is the end of our constitutional democracy and probably the end of us as 50 contiguous states, because we'll fragment apart. And therefore, this is the end of us as a superpower. It's also the end of everything we can be proud of. I mean, if you say to a maggot, you're a racist, oh, don't use that kind of language with me, I don't want to hear that. Well, then don't be that. I mean, it's kind of easy. If you don't want to be a racist, don't be a racist. Like, there's certain things you can't help. If you don't want to be black, you're still going to be black. If you don't want to be poor, you're still going to be poor. But if you don't want to be racist, you could stop.
If our country fragments, as Marjorie Taylor Greene said we should be separate countries, we're vulnerable. We'll be taken over.
Yeah.
China or Russia will move in immediately.
Well, I'm sure that Canada and Mexico will say, gosh, America has treated us so well, we're going to spring to their defense.
More Canadians have volunteered in American wars than any other nation in the world. But Trump has treated them so poorly, there's now an attitude against us.
Yeah, I wonder where that came from.
Well,
and look at the heroic Native Americans and African Americans who fought in some of the nastiest combats in World War II because they were treated as expendable. They got thrown into the most dangerous situations and therefore wound up doing some of the most heroic fighting. And they thought when they came back, they would have earned their place in the respect of the American people. But in fact, we doubled down on pushing them back into marginalized territory. And now Trump has even removed references to code talkers from the Smithsonian. This is how we repay the people who do stick up for us. And those are not outliers. Look at the way Trump has treated his friends. He threw Vance under the bus within a week of nominating him as vice president. Giuliani is still suing to get paid for the incompetent work that he did. Look at the way that he's pretending he never knew Epstein. All of the people, look at his relationship with Elon Musk. Look at the people who have been close to Trump, Rubio, for example, and look at how he treats them now. Comey is the reason Trump became president the first time, and now Comey is indicted. And Bolton, who was widely considered too far right for most conservatives, is now being punished by Trump for not being a ring kisser. So what makes you think you're going to be treated well by this guy? He's already called wounded veterans losers and POWs losers. Do you think you have some cachet they do not have?